Good afternoon, y'all. You're listening to Bedtime Reddit with Redtime Bennett, and tonight we're reading r/askreddit. Tonight, what questions should you never ask at the end of a job interview? Hey, do you do a drug test occasionally? I'm asking for a friend. You know, given that you're not a skilled interviewer, where do you see yourself in 2 years? It wasn't so much of a question, but deciding not to hire a bright young man who had a promising legal career after he aced the interview. We have a very attractive secretary who takes pride in her appearance and does wear tight but professional skirts. She walks by and the guy goes,
"Nice."
Mostly to himself, but loud enough it was audible to me. Jesus, how hard is it to keep it to yourself for a day? Certainly don't want a lawyer who doesn't know when not to speak. Nothing is often a good thing to do and a clever thing to say. That's the key. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in a deposition and I get the witness off guard and tells me something he really shouldn't have told me. And if I didn't keep my composure and pretended like nothing happened, the witness would have shut down. Oh, come on, you can't just tease us like that without getting us at least one example. Alrighty then, I was representing an employer in a workers' compensation lawsuit brought against it where an employee lost a hand during a freak accident. Now, I knew the accident couldn't have happened unless the employee had removed some safety fail-safes. 2 mistakes were made. First, the plaintiff hired some car wreck advertising lawyer plaintiff firm. Most of the lawyers at those places are dumb as bricks, waiting on settlement talks, and they don't pay attention during the depositions and instead work on other stuff. 2, he thought I was some dumb white-collar lawyer who doesn't know how the real world works. So I get into deposition and sure enough, plaintiff's lawyer goes into zombie mode doing other work. So I bait the witness. But I'm just a dumb lawyer. Help me try to understand how this all works. Then they go step by step if you were explaining this to some dumb lawyer. He starts walking through. Too big of steps at first. Now then, I just can't keep up. Let's just break down further. He breaks it down and he's getting on his high horse. Dumb college liberal lawyer doesn't know jack about the real world kind of attitude here going on. No, but you actually put the plate here like by hand? Oh my god, dummy, yeah, by hand, you move it there. Jeez, this all seems complicated. Well, it is, so sometimes we just remove the plastic box so we can move the plates in faster. I see that you take this plastic part up here so you can swap the plates out faster. Yes, sir, that gives us a good 30 to 40 seconds per piece. Okay, so after you take the plastic part off that allows you to bypass this little thingy here, then that saves you time? Yeah, like I said, it saves us a good 30 to 40 seconds. Okay, cool, so let's walk through the day of the accident. Goes through the 30 steps. And then you remove the plastic cover, right? Yes, just like on a typical day. Okay. And so that allowed you to bypass this little thingy here? Yes, sir. And I believe that is consistent with what you told me how you would typically do this? Yes? Okay, so this little thingy here on the press shows the photo. Isn't that a safety mechanism to keep your hand from getting caught in there? Asking for the Wi-Fi password during the interview is precious. We once interviewed a guy who had his phone out throughout the whole interview and was checking it more or less every 10 seconds. It was fascinating to watch. So can I get a ride home? I was interviewing a person for a Tier 1 help desk 12 years ago. The guy was a few minutes late, no biggie. He had just about every certification under the sun and he brought proof. He was wicked smart, but he didn't have a car and was taking the bus. However, the job required you to have a car as we had multiple locations. After I interviewed him, I talked to my boss and she didn't want to hire him, but it was ultimately up to me. I thought it over and I hired the guy. Best employee I ever had. I picked him up and dropped him off and let him use my car to go off site for about a month, and then he bought a cheap car. He was 20 years old and was poor and just needed someone to give him a chance, so I did. He is awesome and is now a Tier 3 tech and owns his own house and is married. How soon can I go on vacation? Time off is a fine thing to ask about. We all deserve the occasional break after all. But there are far, far better ways to request that information than to implicitly suggest that you're already looking for a chance to escape. Rather than making it sound like you're planning an immediate absence, offer a more generalized inquiry. What's the sitch with the women here? Alright, first of all, it's a bad idea to try dating your coworkers. It's an even worse idea to look at the office as a location for a speed dating event. Beyond that, hinting at predatory tendencies during a job interview is a remarkably stupid practice. Perhaps the most unforgivable aspect of that question, though, is the inclusion of tired slang from the 50s. You're at a job interview, not a jazz club. So do you guys ever, To this day, I am not sure what this guy was asking. Are you going to hire me? What if I give you, half of my paycheck? Bluntly asking if you're going to be hired will almost always count as a mark against you. Attempting to bribe your interview might mitigate that a bit, but only if you're pursuing a career in either organized crime or politics. If there's one piece of advice I can impart about questions that you should ask during a job interviews, it's this. If given an inquiry isn't directly related to your position that you're pursuing, the company, or your responsibilities, think twice before bringing it up. Beyond that, feel free to request almost any information that you generally want, but do it in a way that makes you sound at least like a competent candidate. Also, make sure your bribe is actually worth considering, too. Don't ask back the same questions that were asked to you. We had a girl come in the interview and they asked her the typical "what are your strengths and weaknesses" questions. Instead of answering, she just redirected the question back at us and asked us what ours were. This is about your existential crisis during the interview, girl, not mine.
Hey, you, psst, you. How important is attendance? How would you like to make your own hours, have unlimited earning potential, and get to represent a product that practically sells itself? I just need 30 minutes of your time and $200 to get you started today. What do you say?
Let's have a moment of silence to all these poor people who failed their interview.